It's Cowboys and it's 49ers and it's draftism and it's all of these things that we're watching. Now, on that YouTube chat, when we threw that question out a few minutes ago, does this even exist? Like, give me the player. I don't even care what sport. A complete product of his environment. Turns out, in the end, wasn't all that good. There's some answers there, except for there's a problem with a lot of those answers. I only saw a couple answers come in on YouTube. One of them was Steph Curry. That's laughable and funny, and I think it was probably sent as a joke. And I think it might have been Uncle Loon sent in, well, Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, let's talk about that for 1 second. Was Jimmy Garoppolo elevated by Kyle and the 49ers? Your thoughts?
Yes.
I agree.
Without a doubt.
I agree. Here's where the argument falls flat for me in terms of the comparison, because there's data to suggest that every quarterback who's played with Kyle Shanahan, his numbers go up a little bit, okay? But there is not data to suggest that quarterback is automatically the top-rated QB in the league. Doesn't throw incompletions, doesn't throw interceptions, and doesn't lose games. If you want to compare Jimmy to Brock, you can compare the situations, but quite frankly, you cannot compare the results. You can't. And all I said for years about Jimmy Garoppolo was that I thought he was a little bit underappreciated and he took too many hits. And I mean that from the public, not from the defense. But that's not to ever say, nor did I ever say, that Jimmy was a great quarterback. He's not. He wasn't, and he's not. Brock is tracking toward being a great quarterback. His numbers, his production, his winning percentage right now is tracking toward being great. And so...
Oh, he's already great.
That I don't know. I cannot remember a time where somebody was truly great and then, let's say, lost their coach or their system, and then it was just like fizzle into the background and become nothingness. I can't think of that. I don't think that exists.
Well, it's hard to put that into baseball because baseball is such an individual sport. Even if you have better hitters around you, if you're a good hitter, you can rise above and you can still be a good hitter. Even if you lose your two guys around you, the guy in front of you, the guy behind you, if you're a good player, you're still going to be a good player. So I think it's more of a basketball and a football sort of a thing. Jordan Poole's the one that strikes me most in terms of, let's see what Jordan Poole becomes, because he was 20 a game here in a certain role, and his role was constantly changing. You were a starter. We need you to shoot. We need you to not shoot, and all the rest of it. I wonder what kind of player he becomes in terms of going somewhere else and trying to make it on his own now, because you're going to be the one or the two in Washington, and so it's a little bit of a different story than it is here when you're the 4 or the 5. But football, I think, is where this argument really lays and rests the most. And so far, you look at players in the Niners system, they've done, for the most part, better than they have in other spots.
It's actually true for almost every quarterback who has had Kyle Shanahan as a play caller.
Right.
Matt Ryan as the MVP. Matt Schaub with the Houston Texans at a certain point was like, wow, get that guy in your fantasy team. And largely couldn't do much in the league outside of that. So no one's here to debate whether or not Kyle Shanahan is great for quarterbacks. He most clearly is. Another one of our listeners just wrote on YouTube moments ago, Dilfer, Brad Johnson, and going down that route. And that's the one, I can't stand it when it goes there, because those guys were never statistically leading anything as far as quarterbacking in the NFL. They could go out there and they could function, and their defense was so elite that they were able to win football games. And yes, once upon a time, went out there and won Super Bowls. But at no point were you talking about them as like, oh my gosh, they're the highest rated quarterback in the league, or they're leading the league and not turning the ball over, or any of this stuff. That was never the case with those guys. So I find that to be a poor comparison.
It's poor as of now. I mean, those guys have Super Bowls and Brock doesn't, but Brock Purdy right now is trending more toward Drew Brees, as I said yesterday, in terms of his completion percentage, his diminutive stature, His yardage total is not as high as Drew Brees, but he won't throw it as much as Drew, so you can understand why that's the case. But right now, Brock Purdy is not looking like a game manager, which is what Brad Johnson, Jeff Hostetler, Trent Dilfer, these guys won Super Bowls by being don't mess it up quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy's being given a lot more weight on his shoulders than that.
Uncle Loon says, what about Tua? And I like that comparison. And we actually have compared Tua a few times on this show. And I've said there's two things that are sort of, different between Tua and Brock. One is Tua's left-handed. The other one is he's a first-round draft pick. And you'll notice, I find right now, people credit Tua a lot more than they do Brock. And I actually think they're incredibly similar. They're both undersized. They're both working with the same offensive system. They're both surrounded by incredible, fast, effective talent, and I give both of them all the credit in the world. And by the way, I don't know what outlet it was, NFL.com, ESPN, someone came out with their current MVP vote. Just 4 games in. Mm-hmm. Tua's the leader. Purdy?
Number 2?
Second.
Number 2.
Because they know it's quarterback awards. 2. I know a lot of us here are 49er followers. We're like, Christian McCaffrey's the quarter pole MVP. And that's where I would vote, to be honest with you. But everybody knows that in order to win it as a non-quarterback, you've got to be so much better than the rest of the league. You've got to overwhelm with your stats.
It's got to be special. And McCaffrey is on pace to be that special. If he winds up with 1,900 yards rushing and 600 yards receiving, his combined total might ultimately be the biggest combined total in history, even if he doesn't go 1,000. And if his touchdown total is north of 25, that would be special enough to win the award.
Let's go to the phones. Don in Berkeley. Hey, Don, what's up? You're on with Willard and Dibs.
Hi, you guys. I think you have to look at a lot of different angles with Brock, but the one that I like the best is when you see him scramble for a first down and come up with this big smile on his face like he's a little kid playing the kid's game, or when he gets into the end zone on a quarterback sneak and you see that same infectious smile. He just seems like a really nice guy that you want to root for. And that's my main thing. I mean, obviously, if he weren't really good and really successful, that stuff wouldn't mean very much. But as far as whether he's a system guy or a pure talent, I think it's both. And I think I'm trying to imagine if you suddenly woke up one morning and Brock was the quarterback for the New York Giants and the Giants quarterback was the quarterback for the Niners, what would you see? You would not see the Niners having the success they're having because Brock is really accurate and really decisive and really quick and has amazing sense for all the different tools around him. If Brock were on the Giants, he wouldn't have those tools and he wouldn't have as good numbers. So in addition to it being a great story, I think he's a really good quarterback, and I don't think that the false dichotomy of it's one or the other really rings true.
Don, thanks. It's definitely both. I don't think the Giants would be 4-0 if Brock Purdy were their quarterback. I think they'd be better.
Right.
I think they'd be better.
Would the Niners be 4-0 if they had Daniel Jones as their quarterback? I doubt it.
I think no. Yeah, I think no. But there's no doubting that Daniel Jones, like, for instance, to me, the number one item on that resume where you're like, look, I don't know how to evaluate this, is what they did against Seattle in their most recent game. They thought, and this was clear, game planning. Daniel Jones comes to San Francisco on a Thursday night, and they did not sack him that much. Bosa got the one, but they didn't sack him that much. Why? Well, because the game plan was that defensive line is going to overwhelm us, get the ball out of your hand immediately. And so they never threatened anything downfield. Well, the game plan when they played Seattle was, we do think that we can give Daniel Jones time. And they were wrong. Like, huge wrong.
11 sacks, right?
But they thought they could do it. And I don't know if there's any QB, Mahomes included, who could have played well under those circumstances that we saw when the Giants played the Seahawks.
And now Brian Dable and company have to take on Miami. And I love the quote where he said, they asked him if he's sleeping in advance of the Miami game. He said, yeah, I'm sleeping like a baby. 2 hours at a time, and I wake up crying. And it actually hit me.
Sleeping like a baby, it is the worst analogy in the history of English.
Come to my house if you want that to be proven night in and night out.
Exactly. Who came up with that and why? Sleeping like a baby.
Somebody who never had a baby, Mark. Because the baby that I sleep in a house with is up now every morning at 4:15 screaming, only for 10 minutes.
Brutal.
And then back down to sleep. But just screams it loud enough and long enough to wake everyone up, and then, you're back to sleep. Good for you, my.
Giants will do a little bit better against the Dolphins. Dolphins' defense doesn't scare me at all. You saw what the Bills did to them last week. You saw what the Chargers did to
I gave out a pick on liquidate all assets, and I feel pretty good about it. Go to the pod wherever you get it, Odyssey, the Odyssey app, and wherever you get your podcasts. Your boy's looking for a bounce back this week. I've been in a little bit of a cold spell.
Well, yeah.
Guru, though, is hot.
Is he?
15-8.
Now,
confirmed.
You know what? Now I want you to turn that thing around now. You have to turn that thing around. Now, here's what I mean by that. I don't mean start winning. I mean lean into your losing. If you're 0-4, then
I wish.
Then we can change the name of our Friday 5:55 segment to Fade the Dibbers.
Fade me.
Okay? Just listen for the pick.
Fade him.
And then put all of your money on the opposite of whatever you say.
Yeah.
And people will love you.
Do it.
Play him.
Do it. And
do it now.
One of my picks is the over in the Giants-Miami game. I don't think that I think that Mike McDaniel and the never mind. My analysis doesn't
let's
matter.
hear it. Come on, Mike McDaniel what?
I'll wait for Granny to
Mike
go to the
McDaniel
bathroom.
what?
I'm a little gun shy here.
He's not going to the bathroom. Yeah, look, he put his hands up.
They're looking for a bounce back after getting embarrassed up in Buffalo.
Yes.
And the Giants are terrible. And
what's the number?
The over-under?
Yes.
I think it's 50.
You've been
50 and a hook.
Here's my only issue with you. You've been betting a lot of overs,
a lot of totals.
dude. No, but a lot of overs. You keep looking at things and going, over. They're going to score. They're going to score like crazy.
I had the under last night, Mark.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for me, Justin Fields?
You didn't tell us that, though.
I just bet it privately.
Yeah, you got to tell us or it doesn't count. You can't say it after the fact.
I actually teased it and still lost it because, that thing was just...
what was there, 60 points in that game last night?
At the half.
Jeez.
No, it's 27-3, and Jags-Bills 48.5, and I'm going over. 48.5.
That's Jags-Bills. You said Dolphins and Giants.
I'm sorry. 47.5.
You don't even know what game you're betting. You're so cold.
47.5, I'm going over. That's what that was. Guru's on the Rams money line at home against the Eagles.
I think that now that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles are in for a fight. A fight. Now,
you got to go out there and fight.
You got to go out there and be tough.
Yep.
They are going to have a lot of fans in their favor. That's for sure.
True.
Let's go to Daniel and Martinez. Hi, Daniel. What you doing? Daniel,
my brother.
Yes,
hello.
Sir. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry. How you guys doing?
We're great.
We're great. Good. So I'm calling just because I have a funny story. My two friends the other night at their bowling league decided to make a bet when drinks were flying, and they decided they're going to a couple's Halloween party, and the loser has to dress up as Taylor Swift, and the winner goes as Travis Kelce.
Okay, loser has to go as Taylor Swift, and the winner goes as Kelce?
Yeah, the two guys are doing this. Two of my buddies back in Cleveland, Ohio are doing this.
I don't know, man. I think the winner should go as Taylor Swift. They're going to get a lot more attention.
Yeah. Also, real quick, can you guys please beat the Cowboys, because otherwise you will trounce us next Sunday. And I don't want. I want the game to at least be respectful.
Oh, what are you? You said you're a Browns fan, Daniel?
He's a Browns. He's always going to be a Browns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, don't worry about it, Daniel. We're going to trounce you next week either way.
Daniel, let me coach you up real quick. By the way, the reason he was calling in was to say that a player who is a product of his environment is Travis Kelce. That is how we got onto the Travis Kelce topic.
Oh, and then he ended up
Right,
just
Daniel?
talking about Halloween.
Yeah. Right, Daniel?
Yes, sir.
I bet.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, all right. That's an affirmative.
Kelsey right now is really big.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. Daniel, thanks. Travis Kelce as a product of his environment. Like, it's hard to dispel because we all are. Like, that's the other point here. We all are. There's no quarterback in the league who's doing well who doesn't have a good situation. That doesn't exist. So we can do this in both directions. But I do think if you have to push in one direction or the other, in other words, if you're going to have a quarterback is playing really well and a situation that seems to be really positive, and you ask yourself, which is more important? I'm going to argue the quarterback just about every time, and Brady over Belichick is exhibit A, B, and C. Now, I know that's going really high level because there were a bunch of Super Bowl championships. But by the same token, let's go to another situation where it's a good situation and the quarterback is producing. Give me, I don't know. I mean, let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo, right? He's got good weapons around him. There's a good coaching staff in place. What do you think is going to stick longer? If Josh Allen plays for someone else, or how do you think the Bills would look without him? What's more important?
The more important piece is Josh Allen.
I agree.
And it's interesting with the Travis Kelce comp because he's had Andy Reid the entire time that he's been there in terms of being a starter, and he was good before they had Patrick Mahomes. And then they got Mahomes, and his numbers got even better than what they were with Alex Smith. So if he's a product of his environment, is that environment being with a really good head coach and a good offensive coordinator and a great system, regardless of the quarterback? And that is where I think a lot of this goes to the Draymond Green discussion, where Draymond Green is playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And so, yes, because of that, Draymond Green is a product of his environment. But if Steve Kerr wasn't there, if it was still the Mark Jackson days, would Draymond Green and the team be as successful? I don't think so. So the whole product of the environment conversation comes down to more than just the quarterback for me.
Well, especially if you're a pass catcher. I don't think that's new. If you've got a really good quarterback, you're going to put up better numbers. I think there's examples all over the league of that. You know what I mean? Like receivers whose numbers, I mean, like, okay, let's talk about Mike Evans. Mike Evans goes for 1,000 yards, I feel like, almost every year. But when Tom Brady got there, it was like, oh, well, now there's like room for 2,000-yard receivers. Mm-hmm. Like there's Chris Godwin and there's Mike Evans. And we can go around and around in terms of receivers who will put up really good numbers when you have a quarterback, and then they're going to go down. That's sort of what I mean. I mean, are you and I products of our environment? Of course. Of course. I mean, you all see on the internet, you know how this station is doing. How many reasons are there for that?
2. Sorry, Lucas and Grandy. The answer is 2.
And what are those reasons?
It's me, and it's Willard, Dibs. Clam up.
Like, here's the example I'll give. Do I think that the personnel in here, do I think that we are part of the reason? Yeah. Do I think that when Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole, that helped? Yeah.
Thanks, Day-Day.
I do. And that's okay. That's life.
And to a bigger extent, the fact that we got the Warriors on this station.
Sure.
If you want to track our success as a station, it kind of parallels when we got the Golden State Warriors and they were a championship outfit. That kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that helps.
So does that make us a product of our environment?
To a degree, right.
Does that diminish what you and I and Grandy and Lucas and the entire team does? It shouldn't, because everybody's success is a product of their environment. The other station that we go against, do you think they benefited from 3 World Series in 5 years during a time where we were launching this fledgling little radio station? You think that helped them?
I don't
Duh.
I don't know any situation
I said duh.
in society where what we're talking about is not the case. Nobody ever is successful without being surrounded by a good situation. And the person or people who are successful in that good situation also get the credit, because you have a job to do and you have to go do it well, even if you're in a good situation, because you can also have a really good situation and drive it into the ground, because we've watched that 1,000 times too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all over the place. I just think the whole thing is really, really fascinating. that he has become. Like, look at this kid. This guy has become the most polarizing thing in the NFL right now.
He is a product of his environment, and he has taken that environment and done very, very well. So it doesn't mean that the environment is the one that's benefiting or that he's only good because he's there.